Hi, thank you for joining us. President Trump is expressing optimism once again about an end to the war with Iran. In comments to Fox News, the president says he thinks the conflict is very close to over. The U.S. says it has now fully implemented its blockade on Iranian ports. The regime is disputing that claim, but it comes as the White House ramps up pressure on Tehran to give up control of the Strait of Hormuz, that critical shipping lane for oil and gas. According to Central Command, roughly 90% of Iran's economy is fueled by using its ports for international trade, and U.S. forces have completely halted economic trade going in and out of the country by sea. While shipping has all but stalled in the strait, President Trump took to Truth Social today saying, quote, "China is very happy that I am permanently opening the Strait of Hormuz." He went on to state that Beijing has agreed to not send weapons to Iran. More on that later in the show. But U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent disputed the president's status update on the strait.
Straits of Hormuz have not been completely reopened, so we will see. And I'm optimistic that during the summer we will see gas with a 3 in front of it sooner rather than later.
The claim comes as Pakistan presses for the U.S. and Iran to return to the negotiating table for a second round of peace talks. President Trump has said the talks could resume in the next few days. Wall Street appears optimistic. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ both hit record highs today, erasing the impact of the war thus far. CBS News senior foreign correspondent Elizabeth Palmer is in Tel Aviv with more.
It's hard to get a clear picture of which ships are moving in and out of the Straits of Hormuz because they're turning off their transponders, the little beacons that normally they would use to broadcast their identity to satellites and other ships. However, it does seem clear that the U.S. blockade is not only turning back ships which have loaded up at Iranian ports, thereby stopping money from Iranian oil going into the Iranian economy, but also just generally putting a chill on shipping. There were roughly 130 ships going through the Straits of Hormuz before the war. That's down to a handful, 1 or 2 a day, although, as I say, it's hard to see clearly. And that means that the price of oil is still 30% higher than it was at the beginning of January, although there was a little dip today. It's down to about 94, low 90s dollars a barrel because traders see a possibility of a new round of talks between Iran and President Trump coming to some sort of agreement to open the straits for 20% of the world's energy. Back to you.
Elizabeth Palmer, thank you. CBS News political reporter Zach Hudak joins us now. Zach, CENTCOM posted about an Iranian vessel trying to evade the U.S. blockade. What do we know?
Lindsay, we know that, according to the U.S. government, that was a vessel that was actually headed from an Iranian port. Now, when the president says the strait is reopened, which, as we heard from Secretary Bessent, it depends who you ask in this administration if it is fully opened. But they are not, the U.S. military is not allowing ships through if they are coming from or heading to an Iranian port. The reasoning behind that is we're not going to allow ships to go through that in any way their transit is helping the Iranian economy, which part of our dominance over them in this military operation is the fact that they are economically crippled at the moment. So that's basically what that was a case of. It was a ship headed from an Iranian port, headed through the strait, and the U.S. military was able to successfully get it to turn around using one of those warships that we have currently stationed in the strait.
So in separate interviews, President Trump said the war is close to over, and he thinks peace talks with Iran could resume in the next few days. This 2-week truce, as we know, expires next Tuesday. So where do things stand?
Well, Lindsay, we've heard since the beginning of this conflict pretty much from the president that it is nearly over. Right after the day after that first initial strike, he said that Iran had been defeated. So I think that no matter how close we are to an actual conclusion, we'll be hearing that kind of rhetoric from the president, who is aware that there are political damages to the GOP by continuing this war and continuing to have raised prices. That all being said, in that press briefing earlier today, we heard from White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt that when talks resume, they will likely resume again in Islamabad. She emphasized how important and integral the Pakistanis have been to continuing talks as we continue to try to get out of this conflict.
Zach Hudak, thank you. And a quick program, we will have a special edition of the Daily Report tomorrow night. From gas prices to airline fees to mortgage rates, we're taking a deep dive into how the war is affecting your wallet. The Daily Report, Setting It Straight, streams tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern right here on CBS News 24/7.